Brenda, thank you for doing this. So
You're welcome.
I know you taught for a long time. I know you're retired now. How long did you teach?
I taught for 36 years.
Okay. What grade or grades were you responsible for?
I have taught everything from kindergarten to high school in various positions. I taught special education in the elementary levels and the middle school levels, and then I tutored at the Yes Home where I had the high schoolers.
Okay. What subjects were you responsible for? I guess many subjects, I guess.
I've taught every subject. At elementary, of course, you're responsible for everything. And then at the middle school level, I taught both language arts and science.
Okay. Kind of a tough one. What did you love about teaching?
I had to think about that one for a moment because I never really loved teaching. But when I look back, I think what I loved the most was just being able to fill a need when there was a need. One example that comes to my mind is a student had been expelled from school. He was on what we called the 3 to 5 program, which I ran. And he would come in every afternoon, just behaviors just totally off the wall. And when I finally figured out the child was hungry, and what would happen then is I'd take him to the kitchen next door. I was right across from Joe Sloan's classroom and my room, and I would let him wash up, take a little sponge bath, and then I would fix him dinner. And he was an absolute angel, and then ended up going to church with us and was part of the puppet ministry.
Good deal. That's a great story. Well, that's a great story that leads into my next question. Do you believe that you inspired any of your students, or have any of them ever told you that you inspired them?
I have had a few students come back, teaching special education. Of course, those kids don't want to be there a lot of times. But one student in particular, I can remember, she's come back several times. I went to her graduation party, and she is now a teacher herself right here in town. And I just attended another graduation party of a student who really, really struggled. And she's excited for a new future and, was finally able to graduate.
Good deal. Nice. Well, being that you're retired, maybe this is a crazy question because everyone I'm going to be interviewing has retired. Do you miss teaching, or was it your time to finally say, it's been a long time?
It was my time. It was my time to leave. I have had thoughts of maybe going back in a part-time position, but it was my time, and I'm enjoying my time.
All right. Well, Dave, thank you for coming to do an interview and as being part of the teachers that I've asked. So I want to ask, how long did you teach, and what were the things that you taught?
Well, thank you for having me today. I have taught basically 10 years as a teacher, 10 years as a teaching assistant, and 42 years as a middle school and high school football coach and basketball.
Cool. All right. Good deal. So that kind of gives me, so were there specific grades in that time? Obviously high school football, but...
I've worked from 6th grade up to senior in high school.
Okay. So what did you love about teaching?
I loved working with the kids. It was so nice to be able to work with kids and see them capture what they needed to learn and understand. Now, by being in the special ed environment, you had to work especially hard with kids because a lot of them had learning disorders or emotional handicaps and so forth that you had to work on and achieve to get them to trust you.
Okay. And I'm sure that's a bigger challenge right there.
It's a very big challenge.
It's not just working with them for knowledge purposes, it's working with some emotional, some emotional growth, so to speak. Okay. So do you believe that you inspired any of those students?
There's numerous kids that I meet over the years that have told me what a difference I've made in their lives. One student in particular, I more or less adopted him, so to speak. He was a 6th grade student, didn't have a father in his household. Mother was very trying to get him to function, and he'd come to school at 6:30 in the morning waiting for me to come. And he would come and spend all day with me, and then it was hard for him to go home at night because I wasn't there with him. And he went on to become a very successful businessman in his life.
Good deal. That's a great
And
story.
he thanks me for doing it for him.
Good deal. All right. All right. Well, I know you're retired now, but do you miss any of it? Do you wake up and go, man, I wish I was still doing that?
I miss working with the kids. I don't miss the way that the education process is going on nowadays.
Sure.
I think there's too much time for the kids to be on the computer and not showing the areas that they need to develop more. But it's the new way of the education.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you.
I thank you for having me.
Well, Joe, thank you for coming in to do this interview
Okay.
on our Back to School Sunday. So I just want to ask you a few questions. How long did you teach? Because I know you're retired.
I taught for 40 years, and then after I officially retired, I worked 4 more years part-time and in the parochial schools, tutoring kids, and then I finally retired after those 4 years.
Okay.
Retired for good.
Retired for good.
Yeah.
Okay. What grade or grades did you teach, and what subjects did you teach?
I did everything from preschool all the way up to high school. I was a preschool coordinator for quite a while for the public school for the handicapped kids, and my main area of focus was learning disabilities.
Okay.
Kids that had normal, average IQ, but just had some kind of learning block.
So kind of the kids that had was it IEPs? Is that what
Yes,
you call it? Okay.
yeah.
We got to be careful of acronyms. That's individual educational what?
Plan.
Plan. Okay. I knew it was something. Okay. What did you love about teaching?
I just loved it when you would take somebody that was so unsure of themselves and just work with them until they learned something, and then the light bulb went on. That was my coolest time in
Okay.
educating.
Okay. Awesome. Do you believe that you inspired any of your students, or have any of your students ever told you that you inspired them?
Yeah. I see a lot of my students out with their families, maybe at Wendy's or Arby's or something like that, and they always come and introduce their kids to me, and they'll say, "Do you know who I am?" And it's like the last time I saw them, they were as tall as I was, and these are men with grown beards and things like that. And I say no. They'll tell me who they are, very polite, and they always tell their kids, "She's the best teacher I had." It's like, okay,
Great,
that
that's good.
makes your day. Yeah.
I bet. So I know you're obviously you said at the beginning you are retired now. Do you miss it at all? Do you miss teaching?
Not really, because we do a lot with kids. We do the Good News Club at Aurora. Glenda and I do that together, and she's going to be the next person to be interviewed. So we still go back to Aurora Elementary, where we both taught, and we get to see a lot of the teachers that we taught with, and it's just a good experience all the way around.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Thank you for coming in to do the teacher interview. I know that you are retired, so how long did you teach?
For 30 years.
30 years. Okay. So what grade or grades did you teach, and what subjects did you teach?
I taught second through high school.
Okay. Okay. What subjects? You teach everything? Taught all the different classes?
Yeah.
There wasn't anything you didn't teach?
Nope. Well, first grade and kindergarten.
Okay. But you taught all subjects all the way up, like math, English?
Self-contained.
Okay. Okay. What did you love about teaching?
I loved working with students. I did teach science for 10 years, 6th grade science, and that was my favorite because we did the labs, and the students seemed to really enjoy that.
Okay. All right. Do you believe that you inspired any of your students, or any of your students ever come back and said you were an inspiration to them?
Actually, your daughter,
Yeah.
Amber, wrote a beautiful letter telling me how I had helped her when she was coming into South Dearborn in 6th grade at the elementary, and that meant a lot to me.
Good. Thank you for that. Well, now that I know that you're retired, do you miss it at all? Do you miss teaching?
Well, we have a 2-year-old grandson, Wyatt, which we get to see quite often, and Good News Club keeps us in the building, and no, I'm good.
You're good? All right. All right. Well, thank you for sharing.